All right, hello everyone. Welcome back. Another Sunday, another podcast, as we always do. Here to talk about some Souls likes, which I know nothing about. So let's have a professional do it instead. Welcome to the show.
Hey, hello. I'm
Hello.
Mitchriz. I do Souls-like stuff. Elden Ring, Sekiro, the works, all the other ones.
There are quite a lot now, aren't there?
There are so many, and they've actually started to get good because
Hmm.
there used to be a lot, but they were all okay. And now we've had some actual bangers come out recently, so it's getting a lot better.
Well, that's good. Um. So obviously, the Dark Souls kind of start, or Demon Souls was the first, right? And then like Dark Souls, and then like there's just like a bunch now that aren't Dark Souls, but
Exactly. Yeah, Demon Souls was technically the first, but it didn't really catch on really. It was a, cult classic, basically just meaning eh, people that loved it, but everyone else kind of didn't know what it was. And then yeah, Dark Souls 1 really brought it kind of into the mainstream and made everyone say, "Oh, this is the Dark Souls of Zelda."
mm-hmm.
This is the Dark Souls of yeah, but then everybody started making Souls likes. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a super fun genre. The challenge of you will die a lot really appeals to me because I don't know. I think it's really fun to die a lot before you finally get the boss. I'm from like MMORPGs where you could take a group together and you might take literally weeks to kill a boss finally. So getting to have some of that, challenging experience solo instead of like the challenge is getting Timmy to not stand in the fire every time is a nice change and is a lot of fun for me. I find them just a really really cool genre.
Mm-hmm. And how would you like define the genre, I guess?
Oh,
It's
that's
hard,
really
yeah.
hard. That's like one of the hardest things, and it's one of the things that nobody's going to agree on pretty much ever. Everyone's got their own definitions, because like there's aspects that you can point to, and you can say, oh, a Souls like usually has these things. Usually has obviously 3D action RPG, punishment on death, bonfires, respawning enemies. Bonfires meaning like checkpoints that you have to activate as opposed to like level checkpoints. Yeah, enemies that respawn, difficulty, especially in bosses, slow-ish move sets. That's not like a hard requirement, but like it's not going to be like you're teleporting around everywhere. That probably wouldn't count so much as a Souls like. Defensive gameplay focused on rolling or blocking or parrying or deflecting or something else for your defensive side of things. And like the list could go on. You could start to say, oh, it's got to have stats, or maybe some don't have stats, or it's got to have. But at the end of the day, I think it's kind of just a feel. It's kind of just that action RPG where everything is deliberate. That's kind of the way that I put it, is your actions are deliberate. I think in other action RPGs that you might point to, like your Devil May Cries or Bayonettas or things, obviously if you're really really good, you're going to know, oh, my combo is this into this into that, but it's like for a lot of players, it can feel as though you're kind of just doing things. You're just constantly doing things, and then you react to what the enemy does, and then you do more things, then you react. Whereas I think in a Souls game, it's more about the deliberate, I'm going to do this one attack here, and then react to what the enemy does, and then do this one attack here, kind of a play style. And that to me, that's kind of the essence of a Souls like, is the deliberate nature, having to think about every single input that you do, as opposed to like doing a lot of inputs and being able to react to the enemy whenever. That's kind of my feeling on it.
All right, makes sense. So, in terms of the speedrunning scene, how did you begin?
So uh I started not like way back in like the Dark Souls 1, 2, 3 days. I started only in Sekiro. So I played Sekiro through the first time in 2019, and it not right when the game came out, but like a few months after, and I was like, wow, I love this game. This game is amazing. And so I said, okay, I want to play it some more. And so I said, okay, I'll get the other ending. There's multiple endings. We'll go get the other ending. And I got the other ending, and I'm like, I want to play it some more. Like I want to keep playing this game, but like I've already gotten the two main endings. technically there's some other endings that you can do by doing a lot of extra dialogue and blah blah blah. But I was like, that's kind of boring. I want to do something more interesting with it. And so I started speedrunning just as a way to keep playing the game and do something that was challenging, something that was interesting. I'm not a fan of like new game +7, +12, +99, because at the end of the day, that's the same thing, and the challenge doesn't really change when the numbers go up. So changing the challenge from just beat it to beat it faster and faster was a really interesting change of pace that kept the game so interesting and so fresh for so long for me, that I was like, I need to keep doing this. And I started streaming, pretty much just so that I could save the videos without having to use up my hard drive space. I was like, Twitch, you take care of the videos. Free up my hard drive space. Twitch, you get it.
Based, yeah.
And exactly, yeah. And then it just kept going from there. It was like the more I speedran, the more I wanted to speedrun, the more I wanted to branch out into challenge runs like hitless and other things like that, and fun runs. Oh, can I do it if my screen is constantly being blocked by a bunch of random stuff, or if chat gets to control something. All those various other things just sort of came about naturally from, oh, speedrunning is so much fun, I just want to keep doing things like this, because I don't know, it's just getting to play the game I like, with new challenges and new reasons to keep getting better, and that's what I find so interesting.
Mm-hmm. And that's the big thing. Speedrunning creates infinite replay value, and that's what's so cool about it. Because you're never going to be satisfied unless you like tie the tasks. But in a Souls like that ain't happening. So
that's well, there's no tasks for Souls likes yet, but we also never have had any run, at least in the games that I've played, that has been like without significant flaw. Because obviously, you're never gonna match the tasks, but even disregarding that, I don't think I've ever seen a run where I've gone, wow, that is a perfect run for a human, where it's like you can't point to like, oh, there was time loss here, and oh, there was time loss here, because obviously there's going to be like 0.1 seconds everywhere, because you can't input all of your things on exactly the right frame. But there's never been one where it hasn't been like, oh, there's 5 seconds right there because you got the bad luck. Oh, there's 2 seconds there and another 2 seconds here because he took slightly the weird pathing and got hit on the way or something. So it's interesting how hard the Souls games and Souls-like games have been, where we have not even like come close to that level of perfection that you might get in something obviously like Super Mario Bros, where they're like, aren't they like literally frames off the tasks in that game?
Just 22.
Just 22. Yeah. I wish we could get that optimal, but no, that's definitely never happening, I think, in a Souls or Souls-like game. So yeah, it's very interesting. There's always time to improve, and we keep finding new stuff. Like just this month, just recently in Sekiro, there's a complete reroute of my favorite category of it. I haven't had time to go back and play it and hopefully beat the record with the new reroute, but like it just happened. The game's been out for 5 years, 5.5 years, I think, and we just got a complete reroute of my favorite category in it. So it's super cool.
Wow. Well, I guess let's dive into Sekiro specifically then, since that's what you started with, and it sounds like developments be happening. So, what makes that game like this? What makes the speedrun, I guess?
Yeah, what makes a speedrun is the speed. Funny enough, it's because the game just runs so much faster than all of the other FromSoft Souls type games. Now, we talked already a little bit before about what makes a Souls-like game, and Sekiro's kind of on that fringe of like, it's got a lot of the qualities, but maybe not every single one of the qualities, and like, do you count it or do you not count it?
So
it is FromSoft,
right?
So yeah, I count it as close enough. I count it as, if you don't want to call it Souls, I think, that's fine. We all have our own definitions. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But the point is, it is FromSoft. It is difficult. It is 3D action RPG. It does have bonfires, respawning enemies. In my opinion, deliberate actions, although it's a lot faster paced. Blah, 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 blah. Anywho, regardless of that, it being FromSoft makes it, fit in with that for me. And what makes it so fun, back to your question, is it's so much faster. You don't have stamina, so you get to sprint infinitely, which is honestly just like so wonderful on your hands, not having to go sprint, stop, sprint for stamina, sprint, stop, sprint for stamina, sprint, stop. You can just hold down the button and just be like, I'm sprinting the whole time, I'm getting there. It's got verticality with the grapples. Your character moves so much faster that there can just be like giant gaps that look uncrossable, and then you can go, nah, actually, if I jump right on the very edge, so my character kind of jumps in the air, and then I do a wall jump on the way, I can make it across that gap, and it unlocks so many cool skips, and all the skips are like, well, a lot of them are literally frame perfect, and you have to do in motion, in speed, super fast. They're really hard, but really fun and really satisfying to get. The boss fights are super fast, very back and forth, and surprisingly low RNG. There are exceptions. There are a few bosses in Sekiro that are very heavy on the RNG, but most of the bosses are surprisingly low RNG, where like a perfect fight compared to like kind of a bad fight will be like 5 to 10 seconds difference. Which for Sekiro is kind of a lot because we are getting pretty optimal, but in something like Elden Ring, if I'm 5 seconds off my gold, I'm like, dang, that was a good fight. Holy, wow, I got so good of luck. In Sekiro, I'm 5 seconds off my gold. I'm like, ah, man, that luck was awful. I wish, it could have gotten better. So it's really cool that it's like, it's very close to optimal. It's very, very fast. And it feels like the better you get, the better results you'll get every single time. Like the good runners can just bang out, runs that are faster than anyone else consistently, even if they're not beating their own world records. So it's super cool to see.
It's funny hearing frame perfect in like a modern 3D not platformer. I don't know.
Which shouldn't even be a thing, except that FromSoft tied their physics to the frame rate. So it's like, it's literally the frames that you see are also the frames you have to input, are also the frames of the physics. So it is literally a frame of the game perfect.
I mean, that's the definition. Can't argue with that.
Yep. Yeah, can't really argue with it. Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of that game, and I remember like swimming in the air.
Yep.
Stuff
Good
like
old
that.
air swimming. I love that glitch. It's a super cool one where you can, you literally swim through the air, basically flying, but your character's going like this, just flying like this, do a little breaststroke in there. But yeah, and then my favorite category is the one where that's the only thing that's banned. You're allowed to do everything else, but you're not allowed to do the air swimming, because it basically. Right, air swimming is kind of too powerful. Not like in a way where it becomes unfun. It's not arbitrary code execution. It's not, stale reference manipulation where like you can kind of trivialize the entire game. But it does let you skip very large sections of the game by just swimming past them. And so my favorite is the one where there's no air swimming, where instead of doing one glitch, the air swim, and bypassing the entire rest of the game, instead you have to do like 10 different individual glitches in each section to bypass each section individually. I think it's super cool, and I just love that there's like that big difference in the categories. You can have the one that gets to skip almost everything, the one that has to skip everything but like individually, so you have to do a bunch of individual skips, and then glitchless, where obviously you don't get to skip anything. And I think it's really cool.
So what's the time difference between like swim, no glitch, I guess?
So air swim, or so actually there's 4 main any percents. The Shura ending, the short ending. The completely unrestricted, which allows wrong warping using force quits, that I discovered sort of part of it. And I got the first world record using a force quit wrong warp, and I was like, yeah, let's go. And now another amazing runner, Wormdog, has beaten my time by like 30 seconds or something. But that one is under 18 minutes. I think he got just under 18 minutes, like 17:58 or something. Then if you don't allow force quits, you don't allow those force quit wrong warps, It's under 19 minutes. It's I think about an 1840 right now. And then if you don't allow air swims, it is just over 21 minutes, 2106 or 2108, one of those two. And then glitchless, it's under 29 minutes, 28:30-ish, I believe.
It's crazy how fast that game is.
It's very fast. There is a good amount of stuff in it, but if you're only doing the any percent, if you're not doing any of the optional stuff, there is not too much. And yeah, as I mentioned, because you know stamina and grapples and like all this, you get to just cruise through it so quickly. Your character's travel speed is so fast. If you were going at like Dark Souls travel speed with the same amount of stuff as in Sekiro, it'd probably be like 45 minutes. It'd be a lot longer.
I see. So, how's this wrong warp work? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, it's caused by you die in an area that you have not yet gathered any of the checkpoints in. The idols is what they're called in Sekiro. And then as the game is trying to load you back in, you force quit. You Alt F4 the game. So basically, the way that the game like puts you back towards your most recent idol kind of happens in stages. Same thing actually happens in Elden Ring. We can also do force quit wrong warps in Elden Ring, where it kind of like checks the area for a place to put you back first for some reason before putting you all the way back to your most recent idol that you actually got. And so as you interrupted in that process, it hasn't yet figured out to send you all the way back to the idol that you actually obtained. And so it wants to put you back in the area where you died. And so it puts you back at the default location in that area, which for some areas is in a useful spot. In this case, it's the very, very beginning, the tutorial area. You get out of bounds, and the tutorial area is right next to about kind of the midway point of the speedrun. It'd be maybe about the quarter of the way through the game if you're playing normally. Ashina Castle. You get into what is technically considered the Ashina Castle area, specifically the dungeon part of it. Then you die in there. I think we activate it by dying to an enemy called the Shichiman Warrior in the arena. And then when you die and you Alt F4, it tries to put you back in that area, and the default location for that area is along kind of the main path so that you can grab the actual idol there in the abandoned dungeon and get quickly to Ashina Castle.
Yeah, so you're just getting to another area before you can like activate the checkpoint, and then Yahoo, now you're there.
Exactly. Yeah, you get teleported into an area where then you can grab the checkpoint. You then actually have to go back into the tutorial, finish the tutorial in order to set the time. Yeah, because otherwise you don't have grapples. If you don't finish the tutorial, you don't have grapples. If you don't have grapples, you can't finish the game. So while in the tutorial, you get to this mid-game area, grab the idol there so you can warp back to it later, go back into the tutorial, finish the tutorial to get grapple, warp back to the mid-game area, continue from there.
Okay. Fascinating. But that's what's cool about games. Just the random bullshit that ends up working.
Yep.
That's fun. And then so there's been a new discovery in the category where you can't swim in the air.
Yes, the new discovery. Oh, I love this glitch. I love talking about this one. Okay. So this is my favorite skip in the game, partially for reasons outside of the game, partially for kind of the memes of it that we do. But we call it, or at least I call it, woo skip, based on, there's a guy in Sekiro that flies down at you through the air, that as he's flying through the air, he goes, woo! That's my impression of it. If you've heard it in the game, it's probably close enough. But what we do is we basically do that by doing a grapple and taking some poison that ticks on us over time, so that as we take the grapple, our character dies while grappling through the air. And this causes your character to keep the momentum. Normally what grapples do is they give you a large boost of speed to get towards the grapple, then you kind of slow down and like land. Instead, you get that large boost of speed, you die, and your character just keeps going, just flies off. And this can get you to much, much later areas, because in Sekiro, death does not mean you have to go back to the checkpoint. Death lets you revive one time. So we use that in combining with this grapple death. So you die, you fly, you land somewhere much further, you respawn, you continue from there. And we basically found that you can combine this with another glitch where if you try to swap your prosthetics at the same time as you try to grapple, the game, for some reason, will like teleport you back to the previous grapple position that you did, and then send you to the grapple that you grappled to. So you get like you get like teleported super far away, and you get a gigantic speed boost to get you all the way back to the grapple that you just activated the grapple on. Which usually looks funny, but doesn't actually do anything. It's just like, whoa, what was that weird teleport? But you end up at the same spot. But again, because we die and we keep all that momentum, now we get like a super, super, super boost that can get us all the way from the beginning of Senpo Temple, which you can get to very quickly after Ashina Castle, all the way to after the ape, to grab the key item after the ape that is in an out-of-bounds area, and like it skips like 2 sections of the game and skips 2 boss fights, although we have to come back and kill monkeys later at some point anyway, I think. And it's like, it's just the most ridiculous thing that you have to, or that you can do this double glitch, swap, die in the air, keep your momentum, respawn to get the item that's in a completely separate zone of the game. It's so amazing, and that was just discovered recently. Previously, we had kind of a version of that just got you close to the ape, and then you had to do like a separate skip to get around the ape. Now it's all in one. You activate it earlier in Senpo Temple, so you save travel time there, and you get directly to the item, which saves you travel time at the end. So it's like, it's a ridiculous reroute, and it's so, so, so cool.
Yeah, the best glitches are just ridiculous speed. So
Yep.
I'm glad that's what it is. That's just got to be visually stunning, I guess.
It is. I haven't gotten a chance to actually try it out yet, but I've watched people, and it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait.
It's great when games that have been out a while and usually have pretty big scenes still find new things, especially when they're big, like momentum based stuff like that. I don't know, it just seems hard to find.
Yeah. I mean, if we could find places to use that everywhere, man, we could really fly through the game.
Quite literally, yes.
Yes.
Even though the other glitch already kind of lets you do that, just a little slower.
Yeah, it is. That category is catching up to the air swims. I wonder. It probably won't, but I wonder if one day it could be faster to not air swim.
Does air swimming like not involve that glitch at all? Like it's technically, as it is now, more useful to swim.
It is at this moment more useful right now to do the air swimming instead. That very specific part of it feels like it should be faster with this launch than it would with the air swimming. The thing is that with the air swimming, you get to skip the traversal to that point. So there is some traversal that you need to do from the castle to Senpo Temple to then do that. Whereas if you're air swimming, you air swim from Ashina Castle to Senpo Temple much quicker, and then you get to like go from there. So we'd have to find some more things for it to be faster. You'd have to like be able to launch to there to then launch again or something in order for it to, which I don't really see happening, but you never know. We don't count these things out.
I see. And how does like the whole air swim work, I guess?
Yeah, the air swim is actually surprisingly simple. It's just the way that the game does swimming is you are in one of 2 states. You're either not swimming or you're swimming. And the way to transition between those 2 states is if there's a plane of water and you get in the water and you press the dive button, you're now swimming. If you press the surface button, you're now not swimming. So The only thing that like stops you from air swimming all the time ever is usually if you dive into a body of water, there's rocks surrounding it, so you can't get out. So when you're swimming, you're trapped in only this area swimming. So the only thing you have to do is find a spot where you can switch to swimming where there's no rocks keeping you in, and then you just get to keep the swimming state as you go around everywhere. And that's just getting out of bounds. You get out of bounds anywhere with water. You get into the water from out of bounds, from outside of the rocks that are supposed to keep you in. You hit the swimming button, and you're swimming. You can swim wherever you want. Go for it. The only complication with that is while swimming, you're not allowed to do a lot of things. You're not allowed to activate idols. You're not allowed to pick up items. Well, you can pick up technically some items, but not others. I don't know why some of them you can and some of them you can't, but a lot of items you're not allowed to pick up while air swimming. So you also need to find a place to exit the air swimming, but luckily that can be an inbounds pool of water because you can actually surface from above the water, which is quite nice. You have to get in like very specific positions. The game is a little weird about it, but all you have to do is find any pool of water, fly up to it from the top, and then press the surface button, and you'll go back to normal.
Okay. How silly.
How silly indeed. Yep.
Yeah, but that shit is beautiful. This is why speedrunning is great. Anyway, so to kind of go back to the timeline, you started with Sekiro. What did you do after?
I pretty much was exclusively Sekiro all the way until Elden Ring was about to come out. At that point, I attempted to learn Dark Souls 3 because I said, I want to be the best Elden Ring runner in the world. I want to be #1. I want to be the guy. So if I'm going to be the best Elden Ring runner, I'm going to need to learn more of the traditional Souls style because obviously Elden Ring, not like Sekiro, closer to Dark Souls 1, 2, 3. So I said, I'll learn Dark Souls 3. That's got to be the closest, right? That's the most recent Dark Souls game that has come out. Tried to learn it, and I was awful at it. I was so bad at Dark Souls 3 speedrunning. I never finished a run. I got like halfway through learning it before I was like, this isn't for me. So I attempted to be a Dark Souls 3 speedrunner for a few weeks. Didn't work. Then Elden Ring came out. Then I've been, oh, this is awesome. I did a lot of Elden Ring. I've gone back to Sekiro, gone back to Elden Ring. Other games came out. Lies of P. I got really good at Lies of P. I had all the glitchless world records at one point. Then another Crab's Treasure. I don't remember if I actually got the world record in that at any point because right when it came out, I was on vacation somewhere. My family keeps having vacations whenever the new Souls-like games came out. They had one when I think I was on vacation when Lies of P came out, when another Crab's Treasure came out, and when Anatria came out. Very strange, but anyway.
How could they?
How could they? They keep doing just the worst times when I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. But anyway, I did another Crab's Treasure. I've done Mortal Shell. I think I had the record. I'm pretty sure I had the record on that at one point. And yeah, various other ones. Basically it was Sekiro first, Elden Ring second, and then once it was like I discovered with Elden Ring, I can actually be good at these more traditional Souls type games, kind of branched out into a lot of the other Souls likes as they came out, and had a lot of fun with them.
Got it. All right. Well, I guess we can dive into Elden Ring then, since that's number 2, I guess. So that came out just a few years ago now. I forget.
2022. I think it was early. I think it was like March-ish, 2022.
Okay, so like 2.5 years. All right. So hasn't been around too long, but I know there's already so much kind of known about it where it's a lot faster than you'd expect. That's for sure. So
yeah. Have you seen the fastest category under 4 minutes?
Certainly not.
Okay, well there is a category beating the game. Well, beating the game in under 4 minutes using a very silly glitch called zips, where basically due to something weird with the animations in the game, if you just hold block, wait a bit, and then tap walk forward, your character will teleport like really far forward, like really, really far forward, which usually will end up just like getting you killed because you'll teleport and then you'll fall and you'll die. But like if you plan out exactly the right spots to teleport so that you're at approximately the same height as where you started, you can literally just like go through the entire game, perform a wrong warp to the end, using the same force quit technique that I talked about with Sekiro, and then just like finish it. You can even use it to kill bosses because you can teleport so far away. You can teleport to like the edges of the map and then some, so that the boss's platform despawns, but the boss stays loaded in because you're in combat with it, so the game doesn't want to forget about the boss, but it does forget about the entire arena. And so the boss just falls to their death before you fall to your death because you're in the void a million miles away from everything. It's very funny.
Well, I was just talking about the normal route. This is
Yeah.
news. I love this.
It's amazing. It is literally under 4 minutes in game time. It's more like closer to 10 minutes real time, but in game time, which is what we count with, it is very short because you get to just like cut out everything.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of force quitting. There has to be at.
I think there's only one force quit in it, but there's other like quit outs and stuff and cutscenes and various other things that don't quite get counted into the in-game time.
Okay. Oh, so cutscenes and stuff don't. Okay.
It depends. I guess black screen's more of than cutscenes. Anytime that the game is loading, even if it's like an in-game load of things. So like if you beat a boss, it'll like kind of like go to a black screen and then like load the cutscene and then like go to a black screen and then load into the second phase. So just like those parts don't count.
I guess that varies depending on machine. So
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool. But how does this work again?
Well, we don't really know. We don't really
great.
know, but you hold block and then you tap forward, and then when you stop tapping forward, it's not when you press the tap forward, when you stop pressing the tap forward and your character goes from walking back to standing still, they just teleport forward. I don't know what to tell you. They just go like literally like a mile forward. A mile is probably not even an exaggeration. If you marked it out in meters or feet or whatever, it's probably literally like a mile that your character goes forward.
This doesn't sound hard to do.
It is double frame perfect, sort of.
That is harder to do, but
it is kind of harder to do. It was not discovered for like, I want to say a week after the game came out, until somebody who was waiting for their friend in online play, they were just waiting for their friend to get summoned in, was just pressing random inputs and happened to get it. And then we were like, oh, what if we could recreate that? And we like got to work and eventually found it. But yeah, it is something that you very, very rarely see happen by accident. Because you have to, your press and your release need to be frame perfect if you want to get the correct distance on it. Technically, the release is the only thing that has to be frame perfect for a zip to happen at all, but in order to get the right distance, you need to both press and release it on the correct frame. So we use a metronome for that to help out.
Oh, really?
It's kind of the only way, to get it pretty consistent is with a metronome.
That's interesting. So, wow, that's just so absurd. I love that. I have not seen that at all, so I know what I'm looking up later.
Oh yeah. It's there on the leaderboards. It's the leaderboards and like the main speedrunners for Elden Ring hate it and keep like trying to push it even further and further and further into obscurity. They're like trying to hide it. But I think it's awesome. Like it originally, there was a discussion of like, oh, should this even be allowed at all? Should we just ban it? Should we just say that isn't a category? And I was like, come on, guys. Come on. We got to have that.
It's amazing. It sounds amazing, at least. So
it is hardware dependent, which is the one thing.
That sucks.
Not hardware dependent in like that a better machine will get a better time than somebody who doesn't. It's that you need to have a minimum level of machine in order to make it work, period. If you drop a single frame at any point during the blocking, waiting, and then walking, if you drop not even just 1 frame. If you drop a fraction of a frame, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a frame at any point during that, it doesn't work. Your computer has to be able to handle perfectly stable 60.0002527, something like that, frames per second. And I mean literally all of those decimals. If the last decimal is wrong, it will not work. So that's the hardware dependence. We made a fix for FPS that in theory should make it 100% consistent on everyone's machine, but that's kind of still in the testing phase, so I don't want to like claim that it's fully fixed, but it might be fixed. We might have an actual fix for it so that anybody on any machine could do it consistently as long as you hit the inputs.
So you can cap it at 60 for the best chance, and then yeah, your hardware
60.0002527, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's wild. That it's that precise.
Yeah. And the fix is actually not even cap it at that much. It's actually force the game to run at that much by saying if you would drop a frame, instead lag. Don't drop the frame, but have the entire game kind of freeze for a split second instead, so that the game will continue running as though it were at exactly that 60.0002527 frames per second.
I see. That's just so absurd how technical it is, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, ridiculously technical to an absurd level, but that's kind of what makes it cool.
No, it sounds cool. Again, I need to see that because that sounds hilarious. So will do. But anyway, I guess onto the not going at the speed of light. How does that go?
That also goes well and interesting. There's also a bunch of different categories for that. There is the sort of standard any %, which still does wrong warping, but not with force quits. It's a little bit slower, and you have to confuse the game, quote unquote, in other ways rather than a force quit. But it ends up kind of similar, where you get to teleport towards the end, and then we get to use a super powerful glitch called the chainsaw glitch in order to kill things very quickly, where you do a weapon swap to get a very, very fast repeating Ash of War on a very, very slow, heavy-hitting weapon, so that you have a very, very fast repeating, hard-hitting attack that just shreds the bosses. So that one's pretty cool. There's recently a restricted version of the run that doesn't allow that. So instead you play on a super down-patched version of the game where old weapons used to be crazy powerful before they got nerfed. And then there's the standard glitchless, which is what I've run the most often, especially recently, is just the glitchless version where you just kind of go through the game as is, and you just make a bunch of scripts for all the bosses with the weapon that we have, the Bloodhound's Fang, and those are super fun. I especially love the DLC runs. The DLC came out, is it like 6 months ago at this point? It was a while ago. It's been a while.
Fairly recent, but yeah, it's
fairly recent. But it was in 2024, yeah, still, but a few months ago at least. And I think the DLC speedruns are super cool. Bring a new, fresh air into it of like, okay, I'm not doing the exact same thing over and over. I'm doing a different exact same thing over and over. And yeah, the DLC speedruns are fun. I think the DLC bosses really lend themselves kind of a bit more to speedrunning than the base game bosses because they're less scriptable. And I don't mind scripts at all for bosses, but when basically every single boss in the base game is either they follow the script and you get a good time, or they go off script and you lose a minute and you reset your run. In the DLC, it's like you just kind of fight them. And you're going to lose time on every boss. You're never going to match your golds on them, but losing, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds on each boss feels better than you either lose nothing or you lose a minute. So it's pretty cool. I like the DLC speedruns.
And I know the DLC has the hardest FromSoft boss ever created, right?
The hardest casually for sure. And honestly, even in a speedrun, he probably has the hardest execution because his attacks come out very, very quickly. Not so quickly that it's hard to react to them and dodge them and avoid them, but the strategy for speedruns is to parry him. And parrying does not come out when you press the button. You press the button, your character starts an animation, they kind of go, yeah. And when they finally bring like their hand up in the parry motion, that's when it finally happens. So you don't have to react right as the attack's about to hit you. You have to react as their arm is like back here. You start pressing the button. So their swing comes forward, your arm comes up, and they connect at the right time. So your reaction speed has to be like super quick on every single attack that he does, which can make him like just so difficult to learn. Once you finally have locked it in, it's not that bad. The reaction speed is only about average human reaction speed that you need for each of his attacks. But it's just like you consistently need to be able to do that. And normally it's harder to react to things like an enemy attack than it is like watch for the thing to turn green and press the button. So it takes a lot of training, basically. It takes a lot of reaction speed training specifically to be able to parry him consistently. But once you do, he's pretty fun and relatively chill, except that he's like super buggy. So sometimes he'll just do something he's not supposed to do. He'll just cancel one of his combos in the middle of it to start up a different combo, and you'll be like, "What? I was trying to parry that. What the heck are you doing?" But outside of weird bugs and stuff, he's relatively chill, I guess, in the speedrun.
Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of boss fights depend on the weapons and stats and whatever you have, but from what I've seen, like that fight usually takes multiple minutes. Is that the same with most boss fights, or is he just longer than most others?
He's pretty much just longer than most others.
Okay.
Most bosses, even if you don't have a nice script for them, for example, the other two DLC bosses that we tend to do is Mesmer and Romina. But Mesmer we take down in 2 staggers, and I think I usually have my buff up still for Bloodflame Blade, which I think lasts 45 seconds, so it's about a 45-second fight. It's really not that long. Romina I have to rebuff once, so it's more like maybe a minute and a half. But yeah, Radon actually surprisingly can take only about a minute and a half as well. It in the best case, but yeah, oftentimes he will just kind of stall for longer than that. He has a ton of health, but the parries do help to kill him a lot quicker. So it's a weird, interesting one where he can take so long, but if everything goes perfect and he never stalls, it's actually kind of quick.
So it's like one of the most like RNG heavy time swings.
Yes, and it's literally the very end of the entire game. Anytime that he chooses to do a stall move, it loses like almost like 20 seconds if he just decides to do, oh, I'm just going to do the move where I go up in the air and you can't hit me for 20 seconds. Like, he can just do that, and you're just, oh, well, that sucks.
Fun.
Yep.
Love that.
Love that.
Great stuff. Well, I'm trying to remember. The only run I've seen was what you did at PAX. So what category was that?
That is, on the leaderboard, that is known as Defeat Consort. Okay. And I did the glitchless version. There are some glitches you can use, but they don't massively change the route because it is on the current patch. So most of the most game-breaking stuff has actually been patched out, so we wouldn't be able to use it anyway. But yeah, for the glitchless version, yeah, it's pretty much just go through like normal. You have to kill 2 bosses to enter the DLC. In the DLC, you have to kill a minimum of 3 bosses. And then technically there's a couple extra, fights sprinkled in there that are not like big required bosses, and that's kind of it. You kind of just speed through that. It's a fun category. I like it. I'm also going to be showing it off, by the way, later today at Disaster Relief Done Quick, another GDQ event. I'll be the final run there with that same run, Defeat Consort Glitchless. So
is it the finale?
It's a good category. It is the finale. Yep.
Oh well, damn. Great timing here, I guess.
Great timing. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, so glitches don't entail, scaling the terrain in interesting ways, I guess, then, because there was a lot of that I've noticed.
Yes, those are not generally considered glitches. There's the way that it's defined for Souls games, because obviously every game community can define it however they so choose. There's no set definition for glitches. But in the Souls communities, generally it is defined as a glitch if either what you're doing, like, obviously is glitchy, like a zip is a glitch no matter how you do it, a wrong warp is a glitch no matter how you do it, blah, 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 etc. Or if what you're doing skips a required like boss or progression thing.
Some sort of check,
So
yeah.
some sort of check, exactly.
Mhm.
So if as long as you are not skipping a check and as long as you're not doing something that is inherently glitchy, as long as all you're doing is parkour that skips walking and not fighting bosses, you're generally in the clear. So there's a lot of places where that gets into a little bit of controversy. For example, we jump into Radon's arena from above instead of going and walking around and through the main gate. We just kind of jump into it from above, die, and then respawn at the fight because there is these like checkpoints in Elden Ring called Stakes of America, where if you die in one of them, you get to go to the like spot, the specific spot to try again. Mostly they're used for boss fights so that they don't have to put a grace every single place. Instead, they'll just say, if you're in a boss fight, you get the Stake of America, so you don't have to run all the way back to it. And we just abuse that by jumping down into the boss arena, dying, using the Stake of America to go right into the boss fight. That one is a contentious one because obviously it's like, oh, well, that feels weird. It's not just I'm parkouring into the arena. It's like I'm dying and doing this thing.
Like death
But more
abuse,
so,
yeah.
like death abuse. Yeah, like death abuse. Is that glitchless? Is that cool? I think that would still be cool, fine, regardless, except for one little thing. When you go through the main gate, there is like a cutscene you have to activate, some dialogue you have to do in order for the gate to like unlock to let you into the boss arena, and you do skip that. You do skip some dialogue, you do skip some quest progression. Not that we do any quests in a speed run, like why would we? That's like casual stuff, but it does technically skip some check type stuff. So that's where it gets a little on the contentious side. I don't want to, go out there and be like the rules are wrong or anything, but like that's where some people have a legitimate claim of disagreement on that particular skip. I think the speedrun is a lot better with the skip. I think it would be annoying if we had to spend just like 5 extra minutes, like literally like 5 extra minutes just running around the castle instead of skipping there. I think that would suck for the speedrun, but I can see where someone would say, well, I don't care that it would suck for the speedrun. You're performing a glitch because you are skipping this progression. So I can see it both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the hard thing, is coming up with decisions like that. Those kind of things like need a community kind of pull, I guess.
Yeah,
Because
and
not,
we
not
have
one
done that.
person can make that
Yeah.
decision.
We've done that several times. People generally are like, yes, we like this. This is good. Please keep this in. And so it has stayed in, despite some opposition.
And it sounds like there's so many different kinds of things. There's always like 6 any percents in a given Souls-like game.
Yep. Well, I mean, a lot of that is also just because we have a ton of runners generally. They're very popular generally, speedrun games that everyone wants to do their own thing. Everyone's like, well, I don't want to do, the chainsaw glitch. That's boring. I want to do it without the chainsaw glitch. And I don't want to do these zips. They're hardware dependent. And I'm running on a, computer from 1998, so I can't do them. So, or various other things. So it makes sense. And I love that for it, that if you come into a Souls game, you can find any category that works for you. We've got different endings, we've got different completion amounts, we've got different amounts of glitches, and like you can kind of pick and choose and customize exactly what you like.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you focus mostly on any percent runs of the games.
Yeah, I tend to do the any percent runs. I try some of the longer categories sometimes, but like I don't know. I'm like a optimizer and like a, hard grinder. And so if you find a, 3-second time save in any percent, it's like, oh my gosh, oh yeah. And it feels good. And you find a 3-second time save in all bosses and you're like,
Whatever.
Whatever. I don't know. Who cares? So I love the optimizations down to those like individual second differences of routes and stuff. And so that just tends to lend itself more towards those shorter any percent categories where it makes more of a difference.
Okay. Is there anything cool in the Elden Ring runs that we haven't gone over that's worth talking about?
There probably is, because there is just so much to the runs, but I'm not sure. I've got something off the top of my head that I can think of. I might come back to that later if I just randomly. Oh, by the way, in this run, yeah. But
I see. Yeah, I get it. They sound so complex that it's hard to come up with specifics because there's like 10,000 things you have to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
So fair enough. But I guess we can talk about some of the other games. So again, now since the Souls genre is so popular, there's so many other companies and whatever doing their own things, and you seem to pick them up as they come along. So if you want to go into detail on some of the other games.
Yeah, for sure. The first one that I picked up that was not a FromSoft game was Mortal Shell. One that not a lot of people know about. It didn't get particularly popular, but I picked it up because at the time that it was coming out, there was a deathless speedrun tournament, I guess is maybe the best way to describe it. That I was like, oh, I'll be a part of that. That sounds like fun. And so I basically learned it, for this tournament. So tried to learn it, deathless, even though there are a couple death warps that do save time. And then after that was done, and I got fourth place, where I got top 4. But then that game speedrun. Okay, let me rant for a bit about the Mortal Shell speedrun. The Mortal Shell speedrun I think is actually super cool, but at the same time, it's very RNG and it sucks because, for the exact same reason, the fastest thing to do in Mortal Shell, the entire mechanic of the game is you start the game, no shell. And if you get hit at all, you die instantly. You are just dead. But there are these shells that you can acquire that become your class. So they each have their own set stats. They become your health, so that you can the shell can take damage until it dies, and then your shell is like gone, and you're popped out, and you're naked again. And unfortunately, are also kind of restrictions, because when you are in no shell, when you are naked, you get effectively infinite stamina. Technically not fully infinite. You do still have a stamina bar, but it's like 10 times longer than any shell, and it regenerates faster than if you have a shell. So like you basically have infinite stamina. And so the speedrun strategy was to never get a shell so that we could have infinite stamina, so that you could just keep fighting the bosses without having to like stop and recharge stamina. But that also means if you literally take any hit anywhere in the entire game, you die. And that's bad. That's really bad, especially because the speedrun strategy is to never take any checkpoint in any of the levels, because there are basically branching paths. You'll go down one branch, kill the boss there, die to come back to the middle. Go down another branch, kill the boss there, die to come back to the middle. The game wants you to take the checkpoints along the way, and then there's no warping system in the game. Instead, you're supposed to actually fight your way back out, because once you kill the boss of an area, the enemies actually become more dangerous, and they become more of them, and you're supposed to like have a harder time fighting your way out. And we skip that by not taking any of the checkpoints. So, put that together, you die in one hit from absolutely anything, and we take no checkpoints ever along the way. Means you can get, all the way till you're like about to enter the boss fight, get hit in the back of the head with an arrow, boom, you're back to the start, and you've just lost like 10 minutes. Maybe not 10 minutes because it was a pretty short speed run, but you've lost like 5 or more minutes. So it was, infuriating, because one thing happening means your run is super, super dead. But at the same time, it was also super cool because no stamina restriction made it feel not exactly like Sekiro, but made it feel a lot like closer, in that I feel like I always get to go fast. I'm not fast then slow, then fast then slow, then fast then slow. It was like you're always fast because you have infinite stamina. So I really did like it, the feel of it and how fast it was, and the combat was actually super fun. But it was so risky, where anything goes wrong and you're gone. Reset. Don't even try. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You're out. But yeah, I think that's sort of the main thing to talk about with Mortal Shell. Any other questions with that one before I move on?
I don't know. It's just fascinating because, when you have a Souls game, you want to come up with other ways to kind of go about it. So, you do challenge runs. That run just sounds like a challenge run.
Basically. It's not as bad as I'm making it sound as well, because with infinite stamina is infinite rolling, and rolling, luckily for us, was faster than sprinting. So that means you didn't have to like sprint, 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 sprint. Oh, here comes the attack, and now I'm gonna roll it. You literally just spammed the roll button. You never thought about enemy attacks. You just spammed the roll button. And rolls in that game had one vulnerability frame in between the iframes. So as long as you didn't get hit on exactly that one vulnerability frame, you were invulnerable the entire time and nothing could hit you. So 99% of the time you were safe from an attack. It's just if there's like, 20 attacks that are attempting to hit you, that's like 21% chances to get hit. There was a decent chance that you would die at some point and have to reset.
So the run is roll to boss, die
Yep.
back to start, roll to boss, die back to start, roll to...
Yep.
How long's the run?
Ooh, I don't even remember. There was a couple interesting momentum boosts that you could do to like fly up in the air and skip some parts, so it wasn't like the entire thing. But let me check it here real quick. Games Mortal Shell. The current any percent unrestricted is 25 minutes. At the time that I ran it, it was more like 30 minutes.
Okay, so that decent chunk of time to have 0 hits, I guess.
Yeah. You did have to do 0 hits, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I assume for the boss fights, you have to like actually do them. You can't just roll around forever. So
yes and no.
Oh, great.
If you were in fear for your life, you absolutely could just spam roll, and it was an effective strategy. The best thing to do against bosses, the bosses actually were super fun. I'm glad you brought them up, because with infinite stamina, in that game, you were allowed to cancel attacks with rolls, and you were allowed to cancel rolls with attacks. So you would go attack, attack, roll, attack, attack, roll, attack, attack, roll, attack, attack, roll, attack, attack, and you could just keep up the pressure on bosses so much, and then just whenever they're attacking you, you could then basically just go attack, attack, roll, and then let the roll continue through their attack. And then attack, attack, roll, attack, attack, roll, attack, attack. It was so like fast and flashy and fun. It was actually amazing. Plus, there was another unique mechanic to Mortal Shell. There was a hardening mechanic. So in the middle of your attack, you could be swinging and you could press the harden button and your character would like freeze up. And then if the enemy hits you, it doesn't damage you. And then you release the harden and you're back right in the middle of your swing. So you could lose almost 0 time to enemies attacking you using a combination of the harden mechanic and just letting your dodge iframes go for a little bit before canceling it with an attack. So it was super fast and super fun.
Very scripted. Okay.
Not scripted per se.
Oh.
More like a skilled dance where if you're skilled enough, you're just not going to get hit. Because it's not like a script. It's not like you do the exact same thing every time, but it's not just no attack, matter attack, what they did, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just attack,
except,
roll sounded pretty.
Yeah. That's sort of just like the speedy hitting strategy, but that's assuming they weren't hitting you, but obviously they will be hitting you, so you have to. But the problem with that is on the very first patch of the game, about half the bosses in the game just kind of had a literally instant unreactable attack, which like why? They just like did. And so you had to be aware that like they'd use it at certain health thresholds most likely, and sometimes you'd have to literally like in the middle of your attacking, you just had to stop and harden and be like, are they going to do the instant move? And you just had to like sit there and wait. That sucked, because if you didn't sit there and wait and they did the instant move, you just died. You could not react to it. You could not dodge it. You could not harden it on reaction. You had to preemptively be in the hardened state and just wait. That sucked. They did patch out all of them, or maybe most of them, but unfortunately at the same time that they patched those out, they also patched out a phase skip that we used on the final boss, so technically it's still faster to run on old patches, so you have to deal with that. It was a whole thing, but it was a very, very cool, fun speedrun that I did quite enjoy, despite its weirdnesses to it.
It certainly sounds unique, so at least there's that. Right. Next, I guess.
Next, yes. Next, after after Mortal Shell was actually a while that I was mostly just doing the main Souls games until Lies of P was my next big one that I really got into. And Lies of P, I think, is a masterpiece. I think Lies of P, personally for me, is up there with Sekiro and Elden Ring, and is to me better. I know this is blasphemous. A non-FromSoft game, I think, is better than Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. I'm throwing it out there. I think Lies of P is amazing. The speedruns for it are also super fun. They've got, if for glitched categories, they've got zips and pogos, which are like these momentum-based things where you can like fling yourself forward or fling yourself up. That lets you skip a lot of the games. They're like super precise, but you get to line them up as long as you need. Obviously, the faster you line them up, the better. But if you take, 10 seconds to line it up, maybe you're not going to get world record, but you can still get a pretty good run. And so it was very, very fun for those glitches that were being found. But my true love, now that they've patched the game and added in a new weapon, is the glitchless categories. The glitchless categories of Lies of P are kind of long. They're all each like an hour and a half to close to 2 hours. But they get to use my favorite weapon in any Souls, like true Souls game that I've ever played. Maybe not quite to the level of Sekiro, because I just love Sekiro, but like in terms of a weapon, it's so good because what it is every weapon has a Fable art. It's their special attack. And the Fable art for this weapon is a counter that, if you do it successfully, refunds you the Fable cost of attempting it. If you attempt it, it spends 1 Fable, but if you successfully hit it, it refunds you that Fable. So you can kind of just infinitely counter enemies' attacks. So they'll be like, here comes my big combo, and they're like, big swing 1, and you're like, counter. Big swing 2, and you're like, counter. Big swing 3, counter. They're like, hit. You can't counter all those. You don't quite have enough time to get the counter hits in. And then they like finish with the big slam, and then you do like, it has like a super counter that does spend the Fable and doesn't give it to you back, but that one does like huge damage. So it's all about constantly countering the enemy, and it's so much fun. I love those speedruns for Lies of P, because it's always reacting to what the enemy is doing. It's always, non-scripted, although semi-scripted, like kills of the bosses where it's just about better play wins. You have to hit it, and if you ever mess up, you're punished so hard, so you just need to be like perfect on it, and it's so much fun.
And how hard is it to hit those?
So it is, I think it's a 10 frame window at 60 frames per second, so 1/6 of a second, which, when you're trained enough, when you've done through the speedrunning stuff, it's not that bad. It's okay. But casually, it is really hard. Lies of P has a smaller perfect guard window than Sekiro has for its deflect window, which for casual players, it feels like it can be impossible. It's like, oh my god, this window is so tiny, I can just never hit it. But for speedrunners, once you've like really learned it, it's not too bad. You can hit it pretty consistently. You do still mess up sometimes. I mess up sometimes. Other runners mess up sometimes. It is still really hard, but it's something that with enough practice you can manage for sure.
Mm-hmm. And this was the game you said you got lots of records in.
Yes, I have gotten the glitched any percent record a few times, until Spicy and Blanks, 2 other amazing runners, basically just like optimized it to the point where you literally aren't allowed to set up the skips anymore. You know how I said, oh, they're really precise, but you get to spend your time setting it up? Not anymore. If you wanted world record, they would literally just kind of like walk up to it, go, and like hope that it works. And like they get it, and I don't understand how, because I needed to set up. But literally me taking like 2 seconds to set up the skip meant I was probably no longer in contention for world record if I took 2 seconds to set up every skip, because obviously that adds up, and now you're like 20 seconds behind by the end of the game, and it's like, it doesn't matter how well you play and everything else. If you're losing 20 seconds to setting up all the skips, you just GG.
Mhm.
So eventually I got kind of forced out of the any percent because I could not YOLO the skips and hit them. But then Glitchless came along, and with this new weapon, I got every single Glitchless record. They have since all been taken. But at one point, I had all of the Glitchless world records: the any percent, all Ergo bosses, and all bosses.
Got it. So, what are the skips, I guess?
Yeah, the skips are basically just out of bounds, where you go out of bounds. And the way that you get out of bounds is through either zips or pogos. So basically, one of the weapons in the game, the greatsword, has a sort of a two-piece charged attack where the first part of a charged attack is a swing and the second part is a stab. And that stab part, your character like thrusts forward with it. Your character actually steps forward for the thrusting part. This happens very, very quickly. It's supposed to be like a quick thrusting animation. But you can keep that momentum from going forward if right as they go forward, you block. So you instantly transition from this forward into the block. And so it stops the end of the thrust where your character stops moving, and instead you keep the momentum and you fling forward. That's what we call a zip. It can be made even faster because the game has a system where you can swap out weapon blades and handles. And so if you attach a super fast blade to it, like a dagger, or in the case of a speedrun, we use the rapier, and keep the handle that has that thrusting moveset, then you can do an even faster attack forward that goes even more momentum, cancel that with a block, and just, woo, fly off forward. That's zips, and you can use those to get out of bounds in certain places. Like you get up to a high point, you zip out, and now you're out of bounds. The other way was pogos. You do that exact same moveset, the exact same thrust, but you do it into a slope. So your character starts out on flat ground, and then as they go forward, they hit a slope, and the game kind of, I guess, miscalculates it and sends you directly up. And so you just completely convert that momentum into upward momentum, and then you can walk through the air while your character's falling back down, and you can go over walls and get out of bounds that way. And then with enough out of bounds, you can skip bosses just by going around them. You can activate triggers for bosses from out of bounds so that you can skip like the walking section but then fight the boss. You can there's just so many different things you can do by combining those two. And actually combining those two, you can literally do both of those at the same time. If you have a slope and you block as you're going forward, you can get the forward momentum and the upward momentum. So now you're flying diagonally through the air, and that can just get you like anywhere. So you end up fighting like 5 total bosses in the entire run, like 2 at the very start before you have access to the correct weapon and tech and things to get it done, and then the final 3 that we didn't find any way to skip. And like you skip everything between the very start when you can't do it yet and the very end when they're mandatory.
Mm-hmm. And you said the glitchless run's like an hour and a half, give or take.
Yeah.
How long's the skipped run?
Skipped run, if I remember right, was like 40 minutes. Let me see if it's yep, it's around 40 minutes. My time was 45. The current record is just under 42.
Wow. So certainly skips a good chunk. That's like half the game.
It definitely does skip like half the game. It's honestly almost surprising that it's not shorter, given
bit, yeah.
how much that you skip. But it is just like there is still a lot of stuff to do. You have to perform these like zips and pogos just a ton of times because there's a lot of stuff in the game, and the game is very linear on purpose. But normally it's not like, oh, we've got 40 bosses and 10 of them are required and 30 of them are optional. It's like, oh, we've got 40 bosses. 35 of them are required. 5 of them are optional. It's like, okay. I don't think it's quite that many. I don't remember the exact counting, but the point is there's 11 chapters. Everyone has at least one main boss, sometimes multiple main bosses, and most of them have a mini boss along the way. So yeah, it's just a total of like 20 or something required bosses, which even in Elden Ring, which is like a gigantic game, I think if you literally play the game glitchless, it's like 12 or 13 required bosses. So it has more required bosses despite, not necessarily being a bigger game, just because it is meant to be pretty linear. So
Yeah, but the like Elden Ring and other games have like a bunch of optional the ones then to
Exactly.
kind of make up for that. Okay.
Yeah, Elden Ring has like 207 total bosses, and yeah,
Oh my god.
you need to kill like 12 to get through the game.
Oh. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, literally,
That's
yep,
crazy.
207. That is the actual count. Now with the DLC, that before the DLC was like 158 or something like that.
Oh, that's so much better.
So much better. Yeah, simple. Just kill them all. It's fine.
So, all bosses runs take a while.
They certainly do. I don't remember what they're at right now, but I remember recently somebody did an all bosses run that took them 12 hours.
Oh
So
my god. Okay.
I think the
Great.
record is maybe more in the like 5 to 8 range. Those two numbers are in my head for some reason, that it was either a 5 hour all bosses or an 8 hour all bosses, but it's somewhere in there. But yeah, if you're actually, maybe with the DLC, maybe that was before the DLC. It might be more like 10 hours now with the DLC. I'm not sure, but it's not a very popular category, probably for
Is
that
it
reason,
not?
because it is so long.
Yeah, how does that compare to the other like FromSoft games? I'm sure they're not nearly on that level, right?
No, for sure. Most of them have an all bosses that I would say is probably usually around the like 2 hour mark. I think for Sekiro, it's a little over 1 hour. It's like an hour 15. Or a world record, depending on if you're using glitches, it's around like an hour 10. But like a decent speedrun time is like an hour 15. And then for the Dark Souls games, I want to say they're generally like 2 hours. Good thing I have speedrun.com up here right now. But Dark Souls 3. The all bosses is it's actually only an hour for all the
Hmm.
bosses in Dark Souls 3. 1 hour 7 minutes. I'm surprised. That's pretty quick.
Hmm. Okay, so Elden Ring really is just gigantic if you 100% it compared
Yep,
to anything else they've done.
it really is, and there's so much movement that you have to do between the bosses as well, because it's
Mhm.
like an open world, so it's so spread out. That's probably a lot of what saves the Dark Souls ones from being that long, is because they're not linear per se, but they're like branching paths, but you can kind of go down one path and kill all the bosses along the way. Whereas, yeah, in Elden Ring, it's like, if I want to get to this boss, he's just way over there. There's just like
Mhm.
nothing around, and I just gotta walk all the way over to kill him. Teleport back, whatever. So,
Okay.
just can take a really long time to get to every single boss, even if they tend to die very, very quickly.
Mhm. Wow. All right. So good to know all that information because again, I know next to nothing about the FromSoft games, so wow, I see why everyone was praising Elden Ring. There's a lot of content there in
A
comparison to
lot of
anything
content.
else.
Yep,
I
yep.
was not aware just to the extent. Um, so I guess that was everything about Liza P then. So I guess next.
Next would be another Crab's Treasure, which, as I mentioned, as the game was coming out, I was on vacation. Everyone else got to play the casually, then got to speed run it, and the record was already pretty low by the time I even got back from vacation, and was like, "This sounds like a fun game. I want to play this." I even have a plushie that I got from the developers.
Oh, look at that.
It's Krill. Yeah, it's the crab from another Crab's Treasure. They gave it to me before the game even came out, because they were like, "Hey, would you like a key?" Like, so I, not sponsored per se, but just like they reached out and they gave me a key and the plushie, and I thought that was so cool, and I was like, I really want to play this game. Um, and I did, and I was way behind in the speed run. Like, it's so hard to catch up when everyone else is like a week or two in front of you. And so, but I really did like it, so I kept going. And then, as it was like, okay, I'm starting to get okay at the speed run. Moist Critical
Mm-hmm.
announced a $10,000 bounty for another Crab's Treasure for not quite the category I was running, but for the unrestricted version of the category I was running. So I was like, oh, that's easy enough to learn. I can learn the new unrestricted stuff for it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And so I was like, boom, new motivation to like keep grinding, keep going on it. Then it got up to $15,000 because the developers that gave me this nice plushie said, hey, we'll offer $5,000 more if you put it to the restricted version instead of the unrestricted version. Now that is just the category I was doing. So now it's just, oh wait, I've already been doing that. I can do well on this. And so that was super fun. Brought a lot of new runners in to try for their share of that $15,000. Ended up, unsurprisingly, the winner was Spicy. I mentioned him for Lies of P. I don't think I've mentioned him yet for Elden Ring, but he's also amazing there. But Spicy was the world record holder at the time that the bounty was announced, and he was still the world record holder. Like, he dominated that game. I ended up I want to say like 6th or something in that bounty, which was a little disappointing because I was thinking I could at least get top like 2 or 3 based on my prior experience with it, but it just didn't quite work out. There was like route changes that happened literally the day before the deadline, and when I tried to do the new route, I did not get a single run of the new route that worked, so I had to submit my old route PB, which was good for the old route, but everyone else got a new route PB, and I was like, oh man, come on. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. That game is all about momentum. So you know how in Lies of P I said there were the zips where you cancel your stab attack by blocking? Another Crab's Treasure has exactly the same thing, but you cancel it by jumping. And because you jump and the game has aerial control, you get to just like keep that momentum as long as you can keep like weaving around things and do bunny hops to keep the momentum. And you can actually, in the game, you can do a roll with the shell. So they've got shells that are often cylindrical that he can hide inside of the shell and just like roll with it, and that keeps your momentum super well. So it's like navigating the world at super high speeds, keeping your momentum from these launches. We called them charge attack launches, or CALs for short. And so that game was so much fun to speedrun, and it had just so much skill expression with like how to properly navigate through everything at these high speeds, because like nobody could do it perfectly. You could not take the perfect line at the speeds we were going, so you had to like, oh my god, oh, swerve around this, oh god, oh, avoid that. And it was all like so difficult, but so much fun and so rewarding to get better at. And then the boss fights are like parry based, which it was like, hey, I'm the parry guy, let's go. So that was super fun as well. It's just like you constantly are parrying the enemies and then like counter hitting them. So that game was so much fun to speedrun. I should go back to that at some point. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I pretty much did it through that Charlie bounty, the Moist Critical bounty, and then after that I kind of moved back to Elden Ring for a while.
Yeah, I remember that whole thing happening because they did it with like Ludwig's event, like the finales was kind of part of that. And I remember like the whole drama when they said, change the category, here's some money, because it's like, well, we all just learned this.
Well, that's what people say. It was 2 days in. Like, okay. It was 2 days in. It was really not that big of a deal. I think we went from having 9 days total to having 7 days total on the new route. And like 70% of the route is the same. So like most of what you're going to learn is going to be the same. So I really don't think it was that big of a deal, but obviously it feels like a big deal when you might not necessarily know just how close the routes are, and it might discourage you from wanting to learn the other route if you feel like you've just put in all this time into this other route. But in reality, it was probably a better category. It probably was a good change, and it was not that bad to relearn, as long as you were willing to put in that effort to say, okay, I will relearn it now in this other category. So I think it was fine. I really don't think it would have changed who won, at least. Spicy was definitely still winning regardless. And, you know, for other runners, I think the ones that stuck to it had a very fun time with the new category, because I think the restricted category is so much fun.
Yeah, it's nice to get the opinion of someone who actually dealt with it, I guess.
Yeah. It was, you know, obviously from an outsider perspective, it sounds terrible, right? You changed the category mid-competition. How could you? But from the people running it, I think you will probably mostly get the opinion that it really was probably an overall positive change, even though obviously it would have been better if it was at the very start instead of a couple of days in.
Yeah, it makes sense. So what is in the non-restricted that they didn't want in their restricted run, I guess.
Yes, it's a glitch we call uppies.
Uppies.
What uppies? Yes, that is the official. Well, I guess technically every name is unofficial because we're not the developers, but it's the community given name for a glitch where basically, all you do is you walk near a ledge, like just literally like a ledge that your character can walk up, like a little like step or something. Think of it, like a stair, but just it doesn't have to literally be stairs. It can just be any place where your character can go up. And if you kind of stand exactly on that, I don't know why, but your character can jump infinitely. Like as long as you stand on that and then you start your jump from there, you can just jump infinitely.
Vertical BLJs.
Vertical BLJ, sure, yeah. And so then it also sort of activated a state where the game constantly thinks you're on the ground. So what you could do is you could jump infinitely to get it really high up, then start rolling. The game thinks you're on a slope, like a really steep slope. So your roll starts to gain crazy momentum going downwards, and you just like go super fast. And then like, oh, I'm kind of getting low. Jump, 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 jump. And you could just do that through the whole game. The glitch you could activate once, and you could just keep it. You could just keep it. You just keep going. I think you had to reactivate it like once or twice during the entire run. And so you basically got to skip all of that cool, how I mentioned the momentum of like, you got to dodge things, you got to roll and like all this stuff. You got to skip all that. You just fly over everything. So that's why it was considered to be like unhealthy for this speed run, was because you got to skip everything. It's just like, oh, well, I think it's still super fun and super cool. It's a cool glitch, but it for a competition like that, it was a little too trivializing. It turned everything into the only thing that matters anymore is the boss fights, rather than the momentum and the movement matters and the boss fights matter. So I think it was a good change to do the restricted, where the entire run matters instead of everyone gets to trivialize the movement and you only have to worry about the bosses.
That glitch does sound awesome, though. That's
It is
something
cool,
I've
yeah.
noticed. All of the Souls-like games, just their glitches are great.
Oh yeah, it's surprising. So many of them have these like zips and like infinite jumps and like various things like that. That's just like, how does this keep happening in Souls likes? What are they? Are they all using the same engine or something? I don't get it.
Oh no, maybe they were all in cahoots. They're like,
Mm.
we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Let's see how long it takes
sure.
them to find this random bullshit we threw in.
For sure. The Another Crab's Treasure developers did specifically say they were leaving in the launches that we get to do, because they find them super cool. They were like, you guys do that? That's cool. We're going to leave that in. I think they have
Based.
taken out uppies. I'm not 100% on that. I might have to double check, but they have taken out some speedrun stuff, but they specifically left in those launches because they said, oh, we find that super cool.
That's cool. Based.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they had a booth I walked past at PAX, so.
Yep, I went up to that booth and they gave me. Oh, that's the wrong badge. Aha, here it is. On my PAX badge, they gave me for free for being a speedrunner of the game, because I talked with them about it. They gave me these little pins. We got Pagaris, we got the Aggro Crab logo, and we got Krill. So the literal like game or CEO of the company or something, like literally like the main guy for Aggro Crab was just there talking to people. I was like, hey, you're the guy? I was like, are you the one who put up $5,000 for that bounty? He was like, yeah, that was me. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, my bad. Sorry, I forced you all to change categories. Oops, tee. I was like, you're the guy. And I was like, thank you, actually. I liked that change. Thank you.
Did you get some of his money?
I did get some of his.
Well, there you go.
I got a few hundred, I think, from the bounty. I don't think I got over 1,000, but I got a few hundred. It was nice.
I'm glad they spread it out pretty nicely to like not just like, the top 3 or whatever. It goes to like most of the people that put in the effort. So that's good.
Exactly. I think it was top 15, or was it?
Wow.
Just top 10. I know originally it was top 10. I can't remember if when they made it $15,000 if they opened it up to top 15, but either way, it was at least top 10, which I love. I love when those bounties are incentivizing people to play it and compete in it, and not just, oh, only one guy wins. Why would you even try? Because if it was only one guy wins, like,
The record
I might
holder
not have even
wins.
tried. Yeah, like I knew Spicy was going to win, and even though I was really good at the game and I really liked doing it, if it was just top 1, I don't even know if I would have like stuck with it, cuz like I know I wasn't going to beat Spicy. He had multiple weeks on everyone else in the competition, even on me because I had been on vacation. So it was like, yeah, it would have been a little silly if it was just top 1, I think.
I've heard Spicy's name in like all of the Moist competitions. I feel like
Yeah, he has won or placed top 3 in like everyone, maybe but one. He just constantly is just amazing at whatever game he wants to play. It's if he puts his mind to it, he will be the best or one of the best at like anything he does. He's amazing. I can't talk highly enough of Spicy. He's my friend. I got to meet him at some Games Done Quicks, but yeah, we're interviewing me. What are we doing talking about
I
Spicy?
don't know. I was just bringing up a fun fact. You're the one.
Yeah. My bad. Sorry. I love gushing about Spicy. I love talking about other runners because obviously there are so many amazing runners, and I love that we have so many good and dedicated people, and like it makes it more fun to run yourself when there are other runners that are doing these amazing things as well, and you get to compete against them, because I think that's the spirit of it is competition. You know, beating your own record is cool, but beating somebody else's record, way more fun. Way more fun.
Yeah, I mean, speedrunning wouldn't be anything without the community aspect, so it is important to remember that.
For sure.
Always. So is that the Crab Souls?
I think that's about the Crab Souls. I've never run glitchless for it or anything else. I really stuck to that restricted, but I did really love that restricted, so very happy with my time with it. Would probably go back in the future, but yeah, plans at the moment.
And is that everything, or is there...
That is all of the games that I ran within the Soul genre for a long period of time.
Okay.
I did run some of the other Charlie bounties. Actually, that was only one of the other ones. I ran the Amok Runner, the very first bounty. Okay. But that bounty, I was keeping up with. I was doing pretty good until they found there's the car launch, where basically you just need to bug out the physics engine so that the car just launches you across the entire map. And it was strictly required to get a top time, and I could not get it ever. I tried for like 50 hours of just like doing runs trying to get that car launch, didn't get it a single time. So I just, that one was a bit of a disaster for me, but I can't really like be too mad about it. It's like that's just a random physics thing that I just didn't happen to get. So, oh well.
Yeah, I mean that is a video game.
It is a video game. It is. Yep. Oh, I also did Only Up for a little while. Not Souls-like, but that similar like challenging game of like it's hard to just beat the game, let alone like speedrun it and get a good time. So that was a lot of fun as well. Showed that off at a GDQ as well. And so yeah, that one was good. That one, there's not too much to talk about because it's mostly like you use the beds to skip the things. Except for there's a couple times where you use beds to get a lot more horizontal momentum than you're supposed to. Those were cool, where basically you have to like slide off of an object so that it pushes your character sideways so that you bounce off the bed and go way over here when you're supposed to just land right above the bed or trampoline or something. Those were some cool skips. And then at the very end of Only Up, depending on your category, either way, you would get a moving object, either a dinosaur or a dragon, which made it kind of confusing because they both start with D, and like dinosaurs and dragons, they're kind of similar linked in my mind. But there was either you got a dinosaur to like turn really quickly and like slap you into a wall so you fly up, or you got a dragon flapping its wings. You would like jump off of its wings so that it would like flap you up and it would like send you up. But either way, the ending of the runs was cool because you would just get launched up to the final platform. But yeah, those were some cool runs, but I didn't stick with it for super long, and I never had the record in it. But partially that's because the competition for the record was so fierce. Like that was tough. That was a tough game to try to get the record in because it exploded to like thousands and thousands of runners from all around the world that were so good. But it was a fun run for sure.
Yeah, I remember the internet takeover of those kinds of games. And again, now
Mm-hmm.
there's so many of those too. Like I saw you playing
Yep.
Chain Together, which is
I
just
did.
that.
I tried Chain Together. I was like, oh, maybe I could speed run this as well. I was like, no, actually, I suck at this. Wait, actually, I'm bad at this. I'm bad at being chained together with somebody. No, this is not for me. Bring me back to single player.
Yeah.
You can do single player chained together, but come on, that's lame. You gotta. The game is called Chained Together. You gotta do it with a friend,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
Yeah, that looked brutal.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially when you have to deal with like internet connectivity and it's like based on precision platforming. It's like, oh boy.
Yep. We had one like particular jump that it was a super simple it was literally just like you go, you jump off of the bouncy thing, you jump off the other bouncy thing, but we kept having some sort of connection issue where when we would both bounce, it would think we were too far apart and like yank the chain and like pull us together. And so we'd be like bounce, stop in the air, fall down. It was really weird. But if you were closer together, it probably wouldn't be so much of a big deal. And we ended up finding out a way to bypass that. So, but yeah, it was definitely the connectivity was a bit tough.
Mm-hmm. And is that every game?
Let me check my speedrun.com profile and see. Elden Ring, we talked about, another
Mm-hmm.
Crab's Treasure, Sekiro, Lies of P, Amok Runner, Only Up, Mortal Shell, Kanagi Usagi.
Oh.
So, yes, this is uh, Sekiro, but with anime girls. Made by
Ah.
a single developer and released for free on Steam. It's actually super fun. It is
Okay.
actually, if you like Sekiro, I would recommend you play it. You can get through the entire game. You can 100% it in like an hour. Or at least that's how long it took me. You know, maybe it takes you 2 or 3 hours, and that's totally fine. But like, it is literally just like they took the combat of Sekiro and then they like replaced the models with anime girls. Originally, two of the bosses were literally move for move rips of Sekiro bosses. They have since changed them to be unique bosses with their unique moves, but like it is so clearly heavily inspired by Sekiro. It's just a fun time. Like if you just want to do more Mikiri counters and you do want to do more jumps over sweeps and you stomp on their head and you want to do more perfect deflects that build up the enemy's posture, like it's just a good time. The world record for that is a little over 10 minutes. I have a 10:45 for killing all of the bosses back to back to back to back. It's a fun little game. I didn't grind that one out like a huge amount, but I do think it's a lot of fun. It's literally just boss fights. There's no platforming, there's no traversing. It's just you enter a boss fight, you enter the next boss fight, you enter the next boss fight, and that's it.
Hmm. I mean, it's free. Can't
It's free. Yeah.
can't argue with that, I guess.
Yeah. Probably the only like speedrun tech for it, aside from just like play the game correctly, is that oftentimes in the middle of enemy combos, there will be just enough time for you to squeeze in one attack, but only if you like react to it perfectly and you press it like right away. If you are even a single frame late after your, you know, deflect of one attack, if you are a single frame late on attacking in between, you will not be fast enough to deflect the next attack. So it's like with perfect play, it's like deflect attack, deflect attack, deflect attack, and it's like so cool looking, but super hard. I think for the most part, I only worked those in on the ones that were not frame perfect, so that I could kind of consistently get through runs. But if you want the world record, you gotta like work in every single possible punish, and it is like so fast paced. You do not get a break ever. It is like no matter what the attack is, like okay, I can get 3 attacks in here, and then I can deflect attack, and then deflect attack, deflect. It's like it's It's actually really fun, but I downplay it a little bit because it is like a free Steam game and it feels hard to talk it up that much, but it is very fun, both to play casually and to speedrun.
Hmm. I mean, sounds interesting, I
Mhm.
guess. Free like Steam ripoff games are just always interesting, I guess.
Yeah, but when it's ripping off the my favorite game of all time, like, hey, I
Then it's
mean, come
peak,
on, then it's
obviously.
peak, then it's peak. There is one other game that I technically have a speed run on the leaderboard, a ninth place speed run on the leaderboard, even.
Mm.
Which I didn't actually like speed run. Just had a fun like 4-person competition for, where we did like a casual playthrough as fast as possible just to see who could beat it the fastest, which was Peggle. I
Mm.
did Peggle Deluxe, the adventure mode, for an event that my friend was running, and yeah, we just went through, and I got a 2 hours 11-minute time on beating Peggle, so
Mm.
that's pretty good, I guess.
Very
uh,
important on the
very important.
resume.
That was not the ninth place though. That was 343rd place was
Mm.
beating the entire game. But I got ninth place, and there's like a special mode that you can unlock after you beat the game where you have to beat 10 levels in a row without failing one,
Hmm.
which is actually kind of hard in Peggle. Peggle's actually kind of a hard game to like perfect. It's pretty easy, casual, chill to just like eventually win a level, but usually it's like you'll win it on like your 3rd or 4th try. So to have to win 10 in a row of just randomized levels, it just randomly gives you 10 levels, was actually pretty tough. And in that competition, I think I was the only person who actually completed 10 levels in a row. We had like an hour to do it. And so that was a ninth place time. Probably because there's only 9 people that have ever done it. I'm not sure because I
Ah.
don't think my time was great. But it was pretty fun.
Well, it counts.
It counts.
It's on the
It counts.
resume.
It's on the resume. It's there on the speedrun.com, board. So
All right, so that sounds like everything has been covered in terms
I
of
think so.
games.
Mhm.
So I will. Is there like other games you've considered or actually plan to do?
There's a lot. Basically anything that's a Souls like is like I had considerations or plan to do. I did attempt to learn Code Vein, which is another Souls like, because I did actually quite like it casually. I was learning the speedrun, and it is actually like a pretty fun speedrun. There's this movement tech where you perform a backstep with the guns in the game. They do like a backstep shoot. So you do the backstep part, then you block to cancel the shoot part, then a backstep, then block, then backstep, then block, and like it's constantly like this rhythmic like backstep block, backstep block, backstep block, backstep block, backstep block that you have to do at exactly the right timing. So the movement was super fun. It had some cool skips where you could like use the momentum of going backwards to like fling yourself out of bounds and stuff. It was a very cool speed run until I got to the final bosses. 2 of the 3 final bosses were basically pray that you get the correct opening attack or reset the run. Like, at least that's how it felt for me. There was a more of a pro of the speed runs that was like, oh, technically there's this backup where you can this and that and the other thing. But as I was learning it, it felt to me like get the right opening attack or you lose the speed run. You just because if you die, you run out of consumables, you run out of your buffs, the enemy is different on the second try, blah blah. Like it had all these like problems of like if you died, it kind of just wasn't worth continuing the run. And so I ended up not actually completing a run of Code Vein, even though I did like the game, and even though like I got very close to learning it. I completed one proof of concept run where it technically wasn't an official run because I had to load a save once, again, in order to get those consumables back at the very end. But I didn't end up like fully speedrunning it. I wish I could have, but it just I don't think it was quite for me. And then pretty much any other Souls like I've considered speedrunning. Inatria came out recently. I'm like, oh, maybe I'd speedrun that. Wukong isn't really a Souls like, but it's like close enough. It's like a 3D action RPG. I considered speedrunning that, but I looked at that, and the speedruns seem pretty long, longer than I would want. Like the glitch list is like 3 hours. Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of others that I've considered or would want to, or ones that I've done in the past that I'd go back to, but I just keep having stuff to do in Elden Ring. They just keep being like, "Oh, you're accepted to a GDQ event for Elden Ring." It's like, okay, gotta go practice that again. Oh, there's bingo brawlers happening right now for Elden Ring. Okay, well, I guess I gotta go practice Elden Ring bingo to commentate for that. And so like, it's hard to find time to get to everything when it's like there's always Elden Ring. There's always Elden Ring. Elden Ring never ceases. It is just endless that there's always Elden Ring.
The people love Elden Ring. You can't escape.
I can't escape it. It's true.
Well, I guess speaking of that, obviously there's traditional speedrunning, but there's so many other ways you can like compete in Elden Ring, I guess. If there's like some notable way, like bingo, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth talking about.
Yeah, for sure. There's recently there was a randomizer tournament called Randomania, where we had teams of 2 and we did a randomizer of the DLC. So we would be traversing the DLC and we'd have to find there are these like 8 shards that you have to collect, where you have to collect at least 3 of them personally to beat the game, and then as a team we had to collect all 8 of them before we were counted as winning as a team. So that was super cool. The randomizer where like oh, you get used to like, oh, I'm always going to do these bosses and like whatever, and then the randomizer is like, oh, you thought you were going to go kill this boss, but actually it's this base game boss that you forgot about that you haven't fought for months, and oh, actually it's this other boss, but now they're scaled up so that they one-shot you, or various other things like that has been super cool, just seeing like all the various ways that you can have that. Even right now, just this week, there is starting a new randomizer league where it's deathless, where if you die, it like whatever progress you made up to that point is like cut off, and it's like that's your score, and you're trying to kill as many bosses as you can before you die or before 2 hours are up. So it's like they just keep coming up with new ways to be like, what if we had this new competition where people can compete against each other? And it's so cool, and I love all the different ways that Elden Ring just keeps being fresh somehow. Like, guys, it's been out for like 2.5 years. Like, chill out. Let me move back to Sekiro. Let me go on to another game. Come on.
Nope. Too bad.
Nope.
The people just want Elden Ring. Nothing else.
They really do.
And then there's the whole bingo as well. I know that's very big, especially right now.
Yeah, especially right now. There's actually a game going on at this very moment that I have on my secondary monitor, because when they get to the 3rd game of today, I'm going to be commentating. So if this second match wraps up right now, I might have to say, sorry, I have to go right now, bye-bye. But yeah, the bingo has been huge as well, and I've been enjoying watching that and commentating for it. It's a little too stressful for me to run. You'd think, oh, Speedrunner, he's fine with the stress of live competition. No, live competition is like a whole another beast. I do bounties where I get to like grind for weeks and weeks and get my one top time. Live events where it's like, this is you, go. Oh my God, and it's like, you can't rehearse it because the board changes every time. Like, the stress is unimaginable. I was in it for 1 season, the stress got to me, and I was like, never again. Well, maybe in the future. Actually, I might be in it a future season, but never again for a while. So I have backed off from that, and I'm just doing commentary for it instead. So yeah, those bingo matches are just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And what are like some of how do they do the goals? Like, how are they set up in a bingo match of that game?
I mean, they're basically just, made up things that sound fun or silly. A lot of them are, fairly basic. Kill this main boss. Kill this main boss. Kill 4 main bosses. Kill this weird boss that's off in this solitary place that nobody ever normally fights. But like, well, let's give them a reason to fight it. And then there's also like various other stuff that's like sounds funny or just like, there's like this one unique rolling lightning goat that like is really hard to hit because it just never stops rolling no matter what you do. And so let's make that a square. Like, why not? Uh, so it's a combination of the things you would think of, trying to get people to do things that they normally wouldn't, and then things that are kind of, in my opinion, like a little silly in a fun way, not like silly in like a bad way of like, why did they do that? But like, bring some fun to it, bring some cool, interesting things. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's a good amalgamation of so many various things that you might see from Elden Ring.
Again, endless replay value.
Exactly. Yep. And people can make their own boards, and like I think people have. I think the board for the Bingo Brawlers event is not the only board that exists, and so if you really don't like the objectives on that board, you can just build your own. Like there's just a website for it that you can do for any game. Bingo Sync. You can just make a bingo for absolutely any game that you want, and you can play it with your friends or whatever you want to do with it. So.
Yeah, I've never tried any form of bingo, but I know they're hella popular. So, I mean, that
they're
was
popular for a reason. They're pretty
yeah,
cool.
it was the whole thing on like Speedruns Live for years and years. Got so many people into this. Still going strong, I guess. I know they're featured all the time on events still. I guess speaking of events, I know we talked about it quite a bit, but we didn't go over everything. So, talk about your speedrun marathon history, especially GDQ.
Yeah, GDQ. It was always my dream from when I started speedrunning to get on GDQ, because that's part of what got me into speedrunning in the first place, was watching those runs on Games Done Quick. And so the first time that I got in was a race in Sekiro against Lil Aggie, and unfortunately for me, Sekiro is a super consistent game. Like, good players just always get good times. So when I made one mistake, at like 5 minutes into the run, it was over. It was just, I could never come back from it, and Aggie won pretty handily. Because like other than that, we were basically identical, except for this one mistake that I made that cost me having to redo one of the skips. And so that was my first time at it. But then since then, I've gotten to do a lot more solo runs and commentary and things like that, and it has always been so much fun. Like my dream is to just like always do GDQ and just like never do anything else. Do commentary for runs, do runs myself, because I think it is just so much fun, and I love spreading the word of speedrunning to a larger audience that sees it during those. And I also take a lot of like pride in it, because obviously Elden Ring and Sekiro are very popular games for someone to watch, because they're like, how can you even get through this difficult game quickly? And so, I'm very proud that the runs I've been able to do on GDQ have done very well. A lot of people have liked it. A lot of people have watched, and various things like that. And so like, to me, it's the pinnacle. To me, it's like, that's the thing that I want to do just every single time. I submit to every single Games Done Quick. I've been lucky enough to get in the last like 3 or 4 in a row. And I hope that continues, but I know that it won't continue for forever. I don't, I'm not deluded enough to think like, oh yeah, I'll just always get in. But every time that I do, it's so much fun. And even if I don't get in, getting to do commentary or things like that, it's just, it's the greatest thing. Raising money for charity is great. Just getting to bring speedrunning to a wider audience is great. And honestly, I'm a yapper. You can probably tell from this interview. I'm a yapper. I love to just yap. So getting a chance to just yap about these games that I love in a way where it doesn't feel, I don't know, self-congratulatory or something. Like, if you're on stream and you're always just explaining, so now we're coming up on this skip and we're about to do this, like, your audience has heard it 1,000 times. Like, it just doesn't, it feels like a weird thing to do. So getting to yap to a new audience that hasn't heard those things before and make it feel meaningful, make it feel like it has a purpose, I think is so much fun. And so, yeah, I love doing all those GDQ things. And yeah, I've been in so many. I've done Sekiro, Elden Ring. I think I've only done commentary for Lies of P. I don't remember if I've actually done a run of Lies of P. Commentary for Another Crab's Treasure. Did Only Up. Yeah, so almost every game that I've speedrun, I've gotten to showcase in some way at a Games Done Quick, which has been super cool.
And that Sekiro race, do you remember what event that was? Your first one?
AGDQ 2020, I think.
Oh, the last
It was
in-person one before
no,
pandemic.
it was online. It was
Oh,
the
well then
first online one.
that was summer then. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Maybe it was AGDQ 2021 or maybe it was SGDQ 2020. You're right
Okay,
though.
yeah.
Yeah. It was the first online one. I
Yeah.
believe
The
was
first online
me
was
versus
summer
Aggie.
2020. Okay.
I think that's it then. I think that's it. Yeah.
That's cool then because that was my first GDQ then too.
Oh, very cool.
Yep. Back when I actually had the record in Mario and I could
Ooh.
talk about that and then people got good. But oh well.
People do tend to do that.
It is what it is. But yeah, so good event. I've noticed like a lot of people, especially recently, we talk about GDQ and it's like, oh yeah, my first one was that one. I'm like, oh, fascinating. I guess
Yeah,
started a
maybe
lot
it's
of our
the
careers.
online that they gave a lot of more chances to different runners or something because it was online. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it worked out for all of us, I guess. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So yeah, you've done Elden Ring a bunch, only up once on stage,
Hmm.
and are still doing Elden Ring today, apparently.
Today,
So,
literally later today, literally in about 7 hours.
well, promotion. You know what to do, people.
Hmm.
Give us enough time
Go
when
to
this.
games done quick.
Yeah, give us enough time when this goes on YouTube too. Any first watchers can still have a chance. So
Oh,
there you go.
you turn it around that quickly? Wow.
Oh yeah, I can get these things uploaded right away.
Nice.
Especially since I don't think they have that stupid. Not that I ever followed it anyway. Don't tell Twitch, but like there was like 24-hour. You can't upload something to
Yeah,
YouTube after it was broadcast.
nobody followed that.
No one followed that. I sure didn't, but I think they gave up on it anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
We get these uploaded, lickety split. It's fine.
Hmm.
We speedrun those uploads. Well, unless there's any like other tournaments or stuff you'd want to go into, I don't really think I have anything else to cover. I think I talked about everything.
I think that's about it. It's a long speedrunning history, but it's all kind of contained within just a few games, so kind of easy to talk about all at once. Yeah, it's glad to talk about all of it because it has all been so much fun, and I'm excited for everything that just keeps happening in these games. I'm excited about the possibility that maybe more things will happen with Sekiro in the future because that's still my baby. I love Elden Ring, but I love Sekiro, and I wish there was more with that, and maybe there will be. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see what happens in the future.
Certainly still developments happening, so who
Mm-hmm.
knows?
Who knows? Yep.
Yeah, I'm surprised the other games don't have as many like tournaments and stuff that Elden Ring does. I guess Elden Ring is newer, but still.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
every
perhaps
Souls-like
once they all turn into that like classic game status and Elden Ring doesn't feel like the new one, maybe it'll go back to spreading out a little more because even like the Dark Souls games did get a little less popular for a while, but I feel like they're kind of making a comeback as well. So,
And it sounds like you might pick up the other Dark Souls games sometime. Maybe.
we'll see. I did really suck at Dark Souls 3, but I'm probably, if I come back to it, I probably won't be so bad. So we'll see. I would love to be an expert in all of them, but it is hard to find the time.
And just more out of curiosity, have you considered like different content involved? That's not just like speedrunning for PB, whatever, but like other type.
I've tried other content. It doesn't necessarily always work out for me, so it's been hard to like break out into other things. But I'm still trying every once in a while, giving it a little go, and maybe one time it'll pop off that I do some random oh, Elden Ring, but I can only use a shield at heavy load or something. And maybe we'll see. They're always fun to do, but sometimes the greatest thing to do is just the classic, just the speedruns. I do love the speedruns, so even if I did branch out, I'd always want to come back to speedruns every so often. So I don't think I'd ever like hard pivot and give up speedrunning, but doing some other things sometimes is also fun.
Yeah, I know challenge runs are pretty popular, so I don't know
Hmm.
how popular it is for everyone, but I know the Souls-like games, there's like an endless supply of challenge you could
For sure,
do
for
for it.
sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's everything. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if there was there anything at all that we didn't go over that you'd like to?
I think that about covers it. I'm
Really? All right.
very very happy. I think with everything we got over.
Huge. Sounds good then. Well, I mean, feel free to self-promote however you'd like.
Yeah, I'm on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mitchriz. I don't really use any other social media. I'm not like a Twitter user or anything, so that's pretty much the place where you would find me. And yeah, I've got events coming up and various things on stream, and check me out if you want. If the Souls like stuff sounds like your cup of tea.
And is your YouTube mainly just for like PBs and stuff or
It's mainly for PBs and stuff. I haven't done much with it for a very long time. Yeah, in theory, I try to do things with it, but sometimes we have spent months since our last upload. But oh well,
so mainly just the streams and GDQ
mainly the
apparently
streams.
because they love Elden
They do love
Ring.
Elden Ring.
And check it out tonight. If you're
Hmm.
watching it when this comes out at least. Any other time, VODs, I guess. Oh well. Try
Hey, the
again.
VODs or the YouTube, it's all good.
It's there. All
Mhm.
right. Well, I guess we can wrap it up here. So, yep. Thanks for watching, everyone. Feel free to keep watching these. I try to get them out all the time, even though there's so many fucking episodes now. But there, it won't end. Much like Elden Ring, who knows how long this podcast will last? Maybe forever.
Mhm.
Too many people speedrun. But you know what?
Well,
That's a
you love to
good
see it, and
thing.
there's new
You love
ones. There's new speedrunners every day as well. So
You do love to see it. So really just never running out of content here. So thanks for watching. Feel free to keep watching. Appreciate you. And I think we'll call it a day here. So bye bye now.
bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.